So we have three panelists today, and you can see their names up there if you need to check their LinkedIn profiles or follow them on TikTok. We have, of course, Adrian Giles from Fortress. He is the chairman of Fortress, and he will be speaking first. Then we have Ken Cantrell beside me on my left from Zentrix Studios Australia. And that Australia is quite a new addition to that trio of words, which is exciting for animation in Australia and exciting for Melbourne in particular. And then we have Greg. I mentioned NVIDIA's GeForce card earlier. I don't know, Greg, if you were part of that at an early age. Did you partake? Only 7 years, but and we'll talk more about NVIDIA and how you should have bought shares about 7 years ago, because they are $2.87 trillion market cap right now. They are the second largest company in the world behind Apple third, yes, just behind Microsoft and Apple. So I will stop talking and I'll introduce Adrian. Now, Adrian, thank you very much for allowing us to use your facilities. This is the purpose of this facility, is to encourage gaming culture. And of course, with gaming, there is animation. Animation and gaming go hand in hand. You can't have one without the other. So you'll see a theme throughout today. That is that we are talking about gaming, but we are also talking about the origin, the IP, which is the animation itself. So I'll throw to you, Adrian.
Thanks, Maury. Quick point of clarification, I'm not on TikTok, unfortunately, Maury. I'm a year older than you by the date of birth that you gave before. But thanks for having us, and thanks everyone for coming along to Fortress. Welcome, for those of you that haven't been here. I wanted to just give you a quick little overview of the Fortress business and our place in the games industry. You can see that. So our vision has always been to be the world's #1 games culture destination. So when we talk about games culture, we talk about everything from board games to PC games to esports to arcades to tabletop games to cosplay, to every aspect of games culture that people are interested in. And we have tried to create essentially a home for all those facets of games culture. And for those that haven't been, I've got a few little images here about the different aspects of the venue, because where we are right now is what we call the Alienware Arena. And this has been purpose-built, one of the only purpose-built esports arenas in the country. The only other one is the one we built in Sydney. And there are esports arenas around the world. They're typically large venues or they are large stadiums that are taken over and bumped in for esports. But we wanted to create something that was purpose-built and a permanent facility for the celebration of esports and the competitions thereof. So welcome to Alienware Arena. We also have medieval-themed taverns. One of the things we did with Fortress from the early days was we built a whole character universe around our brand, and we did that because we wanted to theme the venues in a way that we could utilise our own IP without having to license in games content from other publishers and so on. We wanted to control that IP, and that's enabled us to create a whole themed environment where, if you have the opportunity before you leave, if you haven't been here before, there's a whole another level downstairs, twice as big as where you are here, that has the tavern, the arcades, LAN Lounge, which is essentially a local area network where people can play PC games together. We also have a whole series of arcades down there. And the business model for Fortress is as much about playing social games, but also food and beverage. So we have 2 bars here, a restaurant downstairs, and like a lot of hospitality venues, busy during the weekends, busy during the evenings. People come in to Fortress because they love to be surrounded by games culture and want to have that social experience with their friends. We also have streamer pods. So one big facet of games culture is the streaming of games content. So we developed streamer pods downstairs and in Sydney that allow people to stream their games content online. One of the largest forms of content creation on earth is game streaming. There's literally hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people streaming right now and millions of people watching them every minute of every day around the world through platforms like Twitch, YouTube, and now a new Australian startup platform called Kick. We have broadcast studios, one just here in Melbourne and another even larger one up in Sydney. We've done around 40 esports style broadcasts in 2024, had over 1.6 million live views of those tournaments and activated that around 9 countries, predominantly around the Asia Pacific region. Within Fortress, there is around 1 million of an audience, so around 750,000 people come through the venues in Melbourne and Sydney every year, and we have an online audience of around 250,000. So still small by global standards, but quite large by many standards of, if you think about sports teams or NRL teams or and so on, they'd be quite jealous of those kind of numbers. So who is the audience? We have around 60% identifying as male, 40% identifying as female. We have an objective as a business to try to get our audience to be 50-50. In some cases, it skews more female, but over the whole course of the year, it tends to be around 60-40. The average age is 27 to 30, so a lot of people think that gamers are kids, and we all were kids once, but we get old and we still keep playing games. From a demographic point of view, around 62% of our audience are Gen Z and young millennials, which certainly makes up the largest portion. And we have about 10% of young Gen Z, 19% millennial, and almost 10% Gen X. They do drink, funnily enough. So we actually brew our own beer, Fortress Lager. It's the number 1 selling product in the whole venue. So people do enjoy drinking, contrary to what a lot of people think about gamers. We also run some of the largest surveys of games culture in the country. So we had 15,000 people respond to a survey. 38% earn more than 100,000, 66% play more than 10 hours of games every week, and 37% rarely or never consume any other sports content. So they're very much rusted on to games. I sometimes think of some of our more passionate audience, they eat, sleep, work and game, and that's about it. It truly is their passion. And 70% of our audience are gaming with their friends in person. So this is another, I suppose, stigma of the games industry, that people think, well, it's just people sitting at home in their bedrooms playing games online with strangers or with friends through the internet, and that certainly does happen, but social gaming has become a new phenomena that is which is celebrated and certainly why most people come into Fortress to game with their friends. We break down gamers into 3 main categories: hobby gamers, social gamers and casual gamers. The main difference being hobby gamers, a male 80 to 20 split, love all things about gaming. They're the ones that come along to the esports tournaments. They're the ones that are the influencers within the industry. They typically like playing Fortnite, Valorant. But these are games that are more popular within our LAN lounges. We have social gamers, a little bit more of the 60-40 male-female split, and love having games with their friends and building a community. And then casual gamers who play for relaxation, wellness. This is a lot of people play games on their mobile phone as well, which makes up a big portion of the audience. So we have over 13,500 people through the venues every week, so it's a big audience. We've learned a lot about that audience. We know that 40% of Australians will play table or board games, and that's a rapidly growing market and industry. The board game comes out every other day. We have a library of almost 200 downstairs, which people can rent and try out and play with their friends. And 48% of Australians play games on their phones, and since the growth of mobile gaming, that it's been probably one of the largest proportions of gamers in the country are actually mobile gamers. So that's it about Fortress. I would encourage you all to head downstairs and have a look at the rest of the venue before you leave. We also have a venue in Sydney, similar size to this one, just opposite UTS on Broadway down from Central Park Station, so another home of games for the Sydney market. We're looking to continue to grow, build new Fortress venues around the country, and looking to license the brand and everything that we do into international markets as well. Over to you, Maury.
Thank you. Thank you, Adrian. Now, if you have questions for Adrian, please scan the QR codes that you can see around. And on my computer here, I can begin to see the questions. And we have a fantastic sponsor, by the way, Strategio.ai. Kat's here today. There she is. This is her product. So not only are we supporting established businesses, but also supporting up-and-coming startups, hence the National Industry Group on technology, innovation and startups. So please put your questions through to any of the panellists. And we'll come to the Q&A a little bit later. Thank you very much, Adrian. I won't go into too much detail other than to say it's sad that we have to say digital gaming to differentiate between the pokies and what is obviously quite clearly a social game. 70% of people are in-person gaming, which is a lot better than probably what grandma's playing on any given Friday, right? I won't go into too much detail, but thank you. Now our next speaker is Ken Cantrill, and he has a video that I believe I'm waving at the booth over there for the first video. And we're going to play a video. Ladies and gentlemen, Ken Cantrill from Zentrix Studios Australia.
Thank you, Maury. As you can see, we animate stuff, and we do a pretty good job of it. 3 years ago, I was introduced to the CEO of Zentrix in India, and unfortunately, India, they were a service facility. They worked with Disney, Warner Brothers, Paramount, DC, Marvel, all the majors. I approached the CEO of Zentrix Worldwide and I said, look, you guys don't have a library. You don't own IP. I'm the creative director or the head of creative at Zentrix here in Australia, and I create content. So I pitched an idea to him that I'd bring all my IP across to Zentrix. We would do a JV and they would open up Zentrix Studios Australia, which happened 3 years ago. We've now got about 14 projects underway. We've got a series called Sticking Willow coming out, launching on Boxing Day. It's been endorsed by Cricket Australia. We've got another show. I'm not sure whether you guys have been living under a rock or not, but there's a little thing called Peggy and Molly going on, which is the Staffy and the Magpie. We just acquired the rights of that to do an animated TV show for them. We've got a major deal that was brokered this morning with HarperCollins. So these are all this is all the IP that we're now creating. So basically, my job now is to bring IP and have IP creation and have ownership in IP. So we sort of found a problem in the market some time ago that this is the animation world it's a red ocean. There is so many people doing so many projects, and I found a gap in the market. Well, I kind of found two. One was kids sports. So we've got street ball, which is essentially just a soccer game on the streets. We've done a teaser with that. We've got the footsies, which we've done that, and we've also now got obviously Snick and Willow, which is just going crazy. We're very excited about that project, and we're working with Cricket Australia about launching on Boxing Day. So the other aspect of this particular industry is that you've got to try to find IP that has a ready-made audience. So the HarperCollins property that we've been sort of trying to finalise, or we have finalised, we're just now working out, we're sort of like just massaging the deal. But that was a book series that has 3.5 million sales globally. We've got another one, which is obviously Peggy and Molly, that have 2.3 million followers around the world that support it, and then obviously cricket. No one's done an animated cricket series, and it's got 1.2 billion, a viewership of 1.2 billion. So we kind of feel like that we've found the IP now that we can really push forward. So in relation to gaming and animation, there's obviously a direct marriage. Gaming is just interactive animation, and that's essentially what it is. I'm talking about, obviously, digital. So we think that there's definitely a link, an obviously link between gaming and animation. That's why I sort of approached Maury about, I could come onto the panel and show demonstrate my views on animation. I can't contest that I'm a gaming expert. But when it comes to animation, we sort of have worked with all the majors. So that's essentially us. So we're looking forward to having any questions and thanks, Maury, for the opportunity.
Fantastic. Now, for the 37% of people that Adrian identified as not playing sport, Stick and Willow is a cricket reference, and I didn't play cricket as a kid.
Sorry,
Stick and Willow. Yeah. Explain what that is in a cricket context.
Yeah. Well, Snick is an Indian boy, and he's massively passionate about IPL and the short form of the code of the game. Willow is she's a Melbourne-born English girl that is a stickler for the traditional game. So they meet. They meet in India. And they've essentially got to work together to save cricket. It's the old classic David and Goliath and rich versus poor story. So we got Ian Botham. I think we all know who Ian Botham is if you're at my age. Ian Botham is one of the voices on the show. He's also an ambassador. We just feel that there's a massive gap that no one's ever done a cricket show. So it's kind of like Raiders of the Lost Ark meets Da Vinci Code of cricket and kids animation. So I think the combination is quite good.
And Snick is off the side of the bat.
Snick's off the side, and Willow's obviously, that's quite obvious.
Well, we have an American here, so maybe not.
No, we've had 2 hours of conversation about Snick and Willow. So.
Willow's what? How do you make a baseball bat? Is it Willow as well? Oh, okay.
Yeah. Well, he's from the Caribbean, so
right.
He should get it. I cursed him a bit. I said, "You should know this."
You should do it. It's part of your culture.
I said,
That's
"You know
right.
who Vince Richards is?" He goes, "I got no idea."
So willow, for those, again, is the wood that makes up most bats, probably all the bats.
Yep.
And snick is the
That's what you don't want to get when you're a batsman.
Was it what do they call them? Who catches that? Either the wicket
wicket
keeper
keeper
or
or the slips.
Or the slips, yeah. Perfect. Now, Snick is of Indian background and Willow is a British blonde.
Born in Melbourne.
But born in Melbourne?
Yeah, so she's actually,
right.
so she's essentially the daughter of Ian Botham. Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
So she's, her father is British, but she grew up in Australia.
Yeah. Don't worry, I'm not going to give away all the secrets right now.
That's fantastic. And what's interesting about your story is that you've tapped into the IP that exists already, and as you said, that's the first animation within the cricket sphere. Yeah.
Well, I think the paradigm of now is shifted. So from coming up with great ideas and then making the great idea and then trying to find a place in the market to position that product is gone. That's Bluey, sure. Bluey's done really well. We're very proud of Ludo Studios and they've obviously found something that's quite niche. But I go to markets and there's thousands and thousands of ideas out there, but I've kind of stripped it back now and try to find holes and gaps in the market and try to fill that rather than, so we call it the Blood Ocean, the Red Ocean, Blue Ocean strategy. I'm not sure if anyone's read the Blue Ocean strategy. You should read it. It's a great book. Yep. Yes, we sort of adopted the Blue Ocean strategy where we do not want to compete with other people in the market. We just want to make sure that if we find a hole, we're going to fill it with a product.
And given that India, at the moment, your Zentrix studio in India is like an OEM of. It's manufacturing on behalf of your Shreks, your Transformers, your Simpsons, your Roadrunners,
yep.
every character we saw there. You're then engaging them in a IP partnership.
Yes, they own. Yep. They essentially own a portion of our business here,
yep.
And they're like our production line.
Right.
So we're the IP creation hub in Melbourne.
Yep.
And then we ship all the content across to India. Indian produce it. We do all. I'm not sure whether people know about production, but we do all pre and post here, and all the heavy lifting, as we call it, is done in India.
Got you. Pre meaning character development,
colouring, script writing, storyboarding, animatics, voices. That's all done here, and then post is all the polishing and the After Effects and music and sound and lighting. It's all done here. Yep,
fantastic. So I guess that's for our audience here, that's quite an important aspect of your business model. That is, you're partnering with India. It's obviously a huge market. You said 1.2 billion potential market, and you're leveraging the relationship that you already have with the Indian partner. You said Nandish, is that right?
Nandish, yeah.
Nandish, that's fantastic. So if you do have questions for Ken, please do scan that QR code, and we'll go to the audience very shortly. Thank you very much, Ken.
Thank you.
Very good. All right. Well, thank you so far. And now, obviously, Ken highlighted that animation is critical in the entire big picture of the gaming industry. Without the initial animation, we don't have the characters that then play into a story, and then that story that can then be played as a role play or a first-person shooter or any kind of specific angle that you happen to be playing. Now, growing up, again, being a Generation X, one of the biggest, negatives of growing up in the 80s and early 90s in computer gaming was the non-player character, NPC, as we like to call it, us nerds. Yep. The NPCs were awful. Because they didn't have any real intelligence. They didn't have any AI, artificial intelligence. And today, I feel sorry for my 15-year-old son, because the AI is probably smarter than most people who play the game, which is good. It makes them better gamers, for sure. Now, I think it was 2007, we saw the launch of the the G-Force. That was the first card, 2007.
Could have been, yeah. I'm not 100% sure. It was just a little bit before my time.
Bit before your time? Good. And that was a card that was there essentially for the gaming industry. And well, it expanded and it grew. And I think at the height of its gaming industry, at the height of the GeForce card, I think version 3, it was a $20 billion business. Now, $20 billion is nothing to sniff at. It's not 20 billion now, is it?
Maybe 21 billion.
Well, the market for gaming is 21 billion, but the market cap for NVIDIA right now, as I mentioned earlier, is $2.78 trillion, which is amazing. I think it's about $111 per share, just in case you're curious. So I guess what's interesting, and we'll go in a moment now, to Greg, is that what was a very niche industry has grown into something that is leading the world. Today, the NVIDIA products are full stack, meaning that they are hardware, software, and everything, the middleware in between that communicates. The team, as I understand, at NVIDIA Global is not just the actual manufacturers and the architects, but it's also the drivers, that's a technical term, right? The drivers, coding of the drivers to make for great customer experience. And so today we see it not only in gaming at that sort of $21 billion market, but we also see it in other things that we all recognise, and that is driverless cars. We see it in technology. We see it in quantum chemistry and the identification of new drugs without having to test them on animals or human. So I guess what we're saying is gaming has made your life a lot better, whether you know it or not. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to hand over here. Thank you very much. Greg.
Thanks, Maury. I think we've actually got a video to kick off too, don't we? Yes, we do. If I can pass over.
At first, RTX was just a glint in our eye. But with every game launched, every level played, and every boss conquered, your passion grew with our technology. And with it, a handful of games and apps grew to 500. To the millions who play and create on RTX, thank you. RTX, it's on.
Thanks, Maury. So it's been a really interesting ride, I suppose, for NVIDIA. I mean, I've only been there for about 7 years now, and it's generally one of those companies that's still, at the size that it is at the moment, it's had a bit of success, but it still feels like quite a bit of a startup because there's so much more to do and there's so much more potential that we can actually see out of both gaming and AI. And I suppose the reason that I'm going to talk, or one of the things I'm going to talk most about is actually, obviously what's happening in the world of gaming as well, but also how AI is now sort of creating an even greater presence and even greater experience for gamers by utilising AI technologies. But just to give you a little bit more of a history lesson for NVIDIA, it basically has just gone 30 years old. So it's a relatively, reasonably good length-sized company now. But it was actually, I don't know if anyone's ever read the stories of how it actually evolved, but for those who haven't, it was basically 3 friends, pretty smart friends really, who got together and they were frustrated gamers. And they used to meet in a Denny's, around Santa Clara way, somewhere like that, and basically work out ways, utilising their software engineering and development experience and capabilities to work out how can we make gaming better. And realistically, that's how NVIDIA came about. They invented the GPU, which obviously the computer industry was already very much au fait with the CPU component, but the GPU was a not known thing. But having a graphics processing unit actually holding more and more of the actual weight when developing games was their theory and philosophy, and they thought that would make a better gaming experience for them personally. And if they had a better gaming experience for them personally, then they can sell that thing and probably make some dollars on the side. So that's basically where the whole context of NVIDIA actually emanated from in about 1993, you know, at a corner seat in Denny's. So basically, since we've had AI in the marketplace now since about 2018, so for about 6 years, we've had consumer-oriented products in the marketplace with the release, if anybody's aware, of the 20 series RTX chips that came through during that time frame. So there's a lot of AI products in market already. When I say products, I mean hardware products, laptops and desktops. So the reality is there's about 100 million products available now, laptops, desktops, that are now AI enabled to some degree because they've got that chip in them at the moment. But even prior to that, we'd been working on, or NVIDIA had been working on AI for about 10 years. You know, there was development, and I really don't understand the technology behind it, but there was a new coding that came through that was developed by NVIDIA that could actually sort of redetermine, re-identify, and then actually really pursue greater capabilities just by utilising that GPU with the software that was included with that individual GPU itself. And I apologise, I can't remember the name of the actual test, but there was a face recognition test back in the I think it was late 1990s, early 2000s. So one of the very early GPUs was turned on to this face recognition test and absolutely blew the test away. And that's when the realisation came that, you know, AI can really work. You know, obviously we've all watched Terminator 2 and we saw what AI can actually do, but we sort of see that the AI is actually a real thing and can actually work in an everyday environment as well. But I mean, similar to what, you know, Maury mentioned before, actually, you can always build the best quality GPUs and the best quality hardware as well, but that's only half the job. The real secret sauce is in the software. You know, making the software work, making the software drag out the most amount of capability out of the GPU hardware, you know, is really the major requirement to ensure that AI can actually work. So where does that bring us to today? And so now, you know, 6 years into our consumer journey with providing AI-oriented products into the consumer marketplace, there is so much new product in market, or so much new technology that's making gaming life so much easier, immersive, challenging, rewarding, and efficient. Look, I'll go through a couple of these just to give you an indication of how AI is actually working. But one of the key technologies we're talking about at the moment is a technology called deep learning supersampling. So it's basically like a neural network which actually aids the generation of frames, or frame generation, but actually making those frames look better. So the frames are actually high-resolution frames. You're adding better-looking reflections, better-looking timing, better-looking graphics, better-looking textures within those graphics themselves, and they're generated by artificial intelligence. And the more people use it, because it's a neural learning system, the better it actually looks. So the more it's used, the better it is. So we've actually released 3.5 versions of, well, 3.5 we're up to at the moment. So we've released we're up to version 3.5 at the moment, and every version it gets better and better and better because the system is learning more and more and more. Another one is like frame generation. So now in certain games, and as I think you might have heard on the video, there's now 500 games and applications that are actually AI enabled. For those games that are AI enabled that have frame generation, that's basically equating to every second frame is being produced by artificial intelligence. So, you know, it's basically understanding the way the game is actually playing. So within literally the blink of an eye, the next frame being played is an AI frame. The frame after that is the frame coming from the actual game. The next frame after that is an AI-generated frame. So that means the game is going to play smarter, it's going to play quicker, and you don't need as an advanced piece of hardware to ensure that you get a really, really smooth and engaged experience. One of my favourite pieces of tech, and I'm also a Gen X type of guy and an old gamer, I've been in gaming for about 25 years, is a new function that we have called Remix. So this is a game where you take those, you know, the old, I think most of us have probably played Doom or Wolfenstein or something like that from back in the day, the original blocky versions of those. By pushing it through Remix, you actually have that now turning into high resolution graphic games. Not as beautiful as some of the games you saw there, but certainly something quite significantly different. And, you know, for a guy who actually put a lot of time into Wolfenstein back in the day, going back and playing it again on a remixed version is pretty cool. But it's more than just gaming as well, and I think we touched on that. It's a lot of that to do with content creation. So all of the major performance suites and the performance applications, if they're using an artificial intelligence or a GPU with AI in it, is now getting significant level of upscaling and advantages and efficiencies. So, just to give you an indication, I mean, I was looking at a sampling and a demonstration the other day, at one of our regional offices, and we were looking at Stable Diffusion, and we were looking at a high-end laptop that didn't actually have, like a very high-end, well-known laptop that didn't actually have an AI-enabled GPU inside that laptop, versus a similarly priced laptop with one of our higher-end GPUs in it, and looking at actually generating images. And the difference between generating an image out of an AI-driven laptop was about 9 seconds on the AI-generated laptop, over about 1.5 minutes, for a laptop, for an image, the same image being generated out of a non-AI driven laptop that also provides itself to being a creative-oriented laptop. So if you're a content creator, if you're even an enthusiast who wants to actually do activities of that nature, having an AI generated laptop that can actually give you minimum 10 times performance level is just going to be so much more beneficial to your content creation, and so much more beneficial to what you need to do. And I was just chatting before and saying that even at a personal level, I've got a family member who's now into graphic design, someone who's never been into gaming, performance-oriented laptops, and has another laptop that's very, very popular. And going through those contexts now, and they're now being told that you need to get a gaming laptop because this is the type of laptop that now enables you to actually get a lot more significantly improved efficiencies when you're going through a lot of the Adobe Suite apps, video editing, software editing, music editing, et cetera, et cetera. So it really is becoming very, very more mainstream in actually taking that gaming-oriented laptops, what is perceived as being a gaming-oriented laptops, and understanding that it's an AI laptop, and it really has significant performance benefits by utilising that type of laptop. So I suppose the context is always what's next, and it's really interesting. I was actually having a chat with one of our product marketing tech guys just the other day, and we were talking about this. I mean, what are we actually working on at the moment? And obviously, you couldn't give too much away, but it really is. It really is depending upon the imagination of the creators out there and the developers out there, because we're only just scratching the surface of what AI can actually provide. What we're working on, some of the things that we've actually announced is, for example, if you're actually playing a game, you would always, you might get stuck during the individual game itself. So normally, back in the old day, you used to ring a hotline number from my old Nintendo days. Now you would have another screen set up on the side, and you'd be going through like a server saying, how do I get through this? How do I beat this boss? What's the avenue through here? What we're just about to release at the moment, I think we've released it on a beta version, is what's called an AI assistant. So AI assistant pops up in the corner of your screen and will basically tell you, to actually beat this boss, you've got to do this. To actually get through, the quickest way to get through the level is you go left at the tree, right at the bridge, and away you actually go. So rather than actually sort of having to go on a number of different screens, it's actually there right in front of you, and it's giving you that live information. And the AI assistant will also update or upgrade or reset your laptop if you wanted to ensure it's actually set up the best possible way to get through this particular game. So, it's really smart. It's really smart. Things like better chat services. Chatbots are shocking. But better, more engaged chat services. So you're not just getting like a tick box, response to a certain question, which we all hate, but you're actually getting like informed, engaged answers. Better search function and capabilities. So you're actually getting a search function and saying, when's my flight to Sydney? And you'll come up with the answer, and then it literally is, okay, I can book that seat, I can get a hotel, I can do all the things I actually need to do, for that Sydney trip. So, it's really, really cool. Let me talk about the non-playing character thing, because I was talking to Maury about this before. So this is probably the thing that I was having a muck around with the other day, and it was really cool. So there's the non-playing characters, as we've all seen if we've actually played games, can be just really, they're there, they give like a selection of 1 or 2 or 3 responses, and they send you on your way. So now we've actually developed that these non-playing characters are actually very much significantly AI enhanced, and they can give real specific feedback, not just within the game, but just in life in general. And just to give you an indication, we was having a look at one of these, and we're all being asked to provide responses or questions to this character. And the guy we were talking to was a guy called Jin, who owns a ramen shop in Taipei. And I was actually in Singapore at the time with one of my peers. And, I'm not much of a ramen guy, to be perfectly honest. And I said, Jin, can you tell me where to get a good pizza in Singapore? And within seconds, he basically came back and said, well, I'm more of a ramen guy, but I mean, you should check out this place here, and gave me the name, gave me the address of where this pizza place was. And I looked, and I was with my peer, who does my role in Singapore. And she said, I actually know that pizza shop. That's really good. And it gives you that level of understanding of that's where games can go. So, not just a non-playing character will just be like a conduit to something else. It will actually be an engaged part of your game. If that's the way that the game developer wants that character to be. So that's, for me, that was something that was really quite astounding that we've actually seen come through. So we've got, NVIDIA in total is not a massive company, I suppose in person wise, but all of our resource and our priority is in product development. So engineers, software developers, hardware developers are always working on what we can actually do, with our products and with the software that we need to make our products work at the highest capability as possible. So we just don't know, what's really coming out next, because it's such, as I said before, it's a 30-year business, but it feels like a startup because there's so much more opportunity just around the corner that we keep finding out on a day-by-day basis. We're only really scratching the surface, of what's going to come, in the next few years. So, it should be a bit of a fun ride for what we're about to see. I think that's it for me, actually. Thanks, Maury.
Thank you, Greg. Right, now, thank you very much. There's, if you haven't asked your question yet, I'm looking at a number of different questions already. Just scan that QR code, and then you will be taken to Strategio's AI.ai. It is powered by AI as well, and it is categorised, so some themes that we're getting from the audience, gentlemen. So we've got diversification strategies, we've got characters, regulation of AI, and I guess that's IP that you mentioned there, Ken. IP, development timelines. A lot of people, Adrian, are curious as to the cost of this venue, but I won't put you under pressure to tell us, unless you are an investor. Do we have an Adani or a Barney family member in the room? No? No? We're just one of the billionaires of India that might be able to help you.
Well, he owns Mumbai Indians.
Sorry again?
He owns Mumbai Indians.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah,
absolutely. So I'm going to just summarise a little bit rather than bring a mic to you. We'll start with you, Ken, actually. There is a question here regarding stereotypes. So when you build IP, particularly around a character, then how do you avoid making the wrong stereotypes? Like we just saw recently at the Olympic Games, a British commentator made a very poor stereotype of women putting on makeup, and it was appalling. How do you avoid that in the gaming market?
Yeah, good question. Look, we sort of put them in 4 different categories. Our characters, we normally put them in like introverted, extroverted. We've got to make sure that there's got to be enough balance, the right balance in the show. So in regards to stereotypes, look, it's a tough one, especially in today's climate. There was a show called Ridley Jones that has now been taken off the air because the bison was binary. So Nickelodeon actually took it off the air. Look, we've got really, really good content creators, and we've got great writers. So it's a matter of finding the right balance. But yeah, we're pretty conscious of that.
Fantastic. And I know, Greg, you mentioned one of your favourite games was Wolfenstein. And if you've ever played Wolfenstein, there is a very clear German stereotype.
It was.
In that, I won't go into any more detail, just between the nerds and me. Fantastic. So I guess, Ken, is there a risk that someone like Greg's organisation, Greg's company, NVIDIA, starts to take away the creativity by creating the AI starts to take in and build its own personas?
Yeah, look, we get this we get this question all the time. Look, will animation ever be taken over by AI? Look, I think that's a long time away. Look, there's no doubt that AI is going to play a major factor. We use it all the time. We actually use it to build our characters from scratch, and then we take those characters and give them to our animators and our modelers and our illustrators. But it saves a lot of time, but it does keep us competitive. So we do use it. I think that if you don't embrace AI, you're going to be left behind. So we do embrace it. But the beautiful thing about AI is that if it does ever create a full TV show, which I don't know just yet if that's going to be possible in the near future, I think it just makes what we do more authentic. So our slogan is made by people. So Zentric Studio, animation made by people. So yeah, I just feel that, the thing that divides us between, creating content by people and AI is heart, passion, and love. Like AI, I don't think there's going to be those particular attributes in AI for a long time. So what divides us is content, stories, and characters. And I think that's going to be a long time coming.
All right. Well, on the note of made by people and personas, to Greg, we have a couple of questions here about, and this probably leads into the BPO market. So outside of gaming, we have the business process outsourcing. And obviously with the Australia-India Chamber of Commerce, we know that a lot of the BPO processes are outsourced. They've gone over to the Philippines, over to India. So we've got a couple of questions here regarding will AI essentially take over jobs? Now, they've listed voice actors in this case, but I'd like to expand just voice into accountants, lawyers, and any other job that involves a lot of data.
I really can't see it, and I think actually further to Ken's point, I think AI is pretty much more of a tool, rather than a competitor, and a tool that we need to fully understand. And I think I should go back to one of the comments that our CEO made, because he gets asked this question a lot, and he was talking about, and he got asked the question, and he answered in the way of, and the companies he believes that the companies that embrace AI will start to actually really expand and grow. And he's never seen a company that's on an expansional growth profile ever actually downsize their workforce. So I think that's, it might actually shift. The workforce might actually shift, which has been doing for decades upon decades, and jobs and roles. But I think the total amount of employ that will actually take place will only ever increase with AI.
Yeah, fantastic. Let's jump to Adrian with a couple of questions regarding the venue itself and Fortress. So Melbourne venue, Sydney venue, you were talking offline with me earlier that you could consider outside investment or licensing. If you were to license, any ideas which regions you would look at?
So mainly we're looking at licensing because we want to expand the brand internationally, and to do it ourselves globally would be quite an undertaking, both from a capital point of view and time and so on. We built Melbourne in such a way that it was like a business in a box, so when we built Sydney we could copy and paste it, I suppose, in a lot of ways, and improve certain aspects of it. And we've created that package that we can then license to interested parties that want to build a fortress in their own jurisdiction. I think we are thinking of the English-speaking markets first, like the UK and US, but we've actually had inbound interest from a lot of different countries for what we do, how we do it, how we put it together. Get asked the question a lot about how much it costs. The answer is different in every market. The answer is also a lot, but the return on the investment is quite attractive. So, we also work closely with our partners, Dell, Alienware. We had Telstra on board for a couple of years, Red Bull, NVIDIA through Dell. All of the machines here are, when we first launched, we had the 2080s, and in Sydney we've got the 3090s, and for a lot of the people that come to Fortress, actually being able to play on the latest hardware, particularly NVIDIA GPUs, is really part of that attraction, because they're not cheap. They're worth it, but they're not cheap for the average punter at home.
And on that note, we do have a question about, is it a good time to buy shares in NVIDIA?
I don't think I'm actually allowed to answer that.
Yeah, probably
honest,
not.
actually.
Insider trading.
I'll
let you know later. Excellent. Well, these are excellent questions. We do have a few others. So we've got a question for Ken now. In terms of taking an idea from creation to actually getting it running, to actually being seen by an audience, what are we talking in terms of time frame?
Look, probably the 18 months, depending what we're talking about in regards to what the end result or what the end product's going to be. Our Snick and Willow product, if we're talking from inception out of my head through to now being a physical product and giving birth to characters, that took us, what did that take us, around about 10 months to do that? To create the 52 episodes that we're planning on doing was probably around about 2 years. So it's not a short process. Yeah, I hope that answers the question.
I think it does, to the person who asked it. Very good. Now, I want to add, if you're excited about gaming and animation that's involved in gaming, there is actually a tax incentive. So the digital games tax offset. So I believe we have. Do we have a DFAT member in the audience here? If you'd like to know more questions directed in his direction, but there's a 30% refundable tax offset that started in July 2022. According to my research here, which means that if you happen to have a $66 million project, which is the maximum, you can get $20 million back from the federal government for tax. So, maybe that's a way of funding the next Fortress overseas, is to make it also a hub for new games, perhaps. Ladies and gentlemen, you have a... Yeah, go ahead.
Just wondering, what's the impact of the AI on the power situation? Currently, the new NVIDIA chips have a huge power. Will this sort of overwhelm any power system we've got in Australia?
So just to repeat, AI technology using training the grid. Is it a problem?
To be honest, the research that we've actually done is that the chips that the AI-oriented chips will actually drag out a little bit more power than a non-AI chip. And that's with every incarnation that's been getting a little bit more power-oriented. However, we would balance that by saying that if you're actually doing like a lot of those content creation applications that I mentioned before, it will take you so much. So the time savings you will get will far outweigh the excess power that you will receive. And I know that we're actually also working on power efficiency modules at the moment for the next iteration of chips. Very good. And a perfect question from a boomer who didn't use the QR code. I think we are going back to that stereotype again. Thank you very much for being here. Now, we are at the end of today. There are a few more questions that didn't get asked, and these gentlemen will be around for the next few minutes to ask them. I believe, Greg, you mentioned that NVIDIA AI is at 3.5, is that right?
Oh no, it's one of the technologies that we use is predominantly with a gaming technology is at its 3.5 iteration at the moment, but every year, every other year, there'll be another iteration of that coming out.
So going back to your question, when will humans be the energy source for AI in a matrix world?
I think it's next week.
Very, very good. See, good question. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, would you please put your hands together for our three panellists? We have, of course, Adrian, Ken, and Greg. And if you'd like to speak to them, you may do so. Thank you very much for coming here and supporting the Australia-India Chamber of Commerce and the City of Melbourne. Thank you.
Thanks, Dave.